Mia each the first word?
It's in the middle of the song. I usually skip it.
Okay.
Let's see.
I have to look something up. You find it. I'm happy to do it, just as long as we know where it is.
Psalm 34.
Is he mood?
עמוד 128.
Great.
128.
Great, perfect, we'll do it. Okay. And if I skip it, just remind me,
Okay.
because it means I did it out of habit.
It's, start with לדוד בשענתו את העמו בפני המלך.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting.
Yeah, it is. Oh. I'm finally reading this thing.
Yovel year is announced on Yom Kippur.
I know. Isn't that interesting?
That's a very interesting. So just to show that it's not just an earthy thing, there's something.
Right. Well, in the context of Kabbalah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Because of Binah,
Yeah.
right? But outside of Kabbalah, it's it's very interesting. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm just.
In my Gates of Light class, the last 2 weeks we were doing Binah,
Well,
and I think it's the longest chapter. It's very complex in that book. I don't know if you remember. Did you study that with Sophie? It's very complex, but it's so powerful, so beautiful. I find that it's so hard to read. That book is so hard to read because, well, really, your brain naturally wants to make an image. You want to have something to hold on to, and then of course, as soon as you do that, you're obviously on the wrong track. But it's so hard to not get your brain to want to think of something like a sphira, like mashahushi, will say it, or and changes it or something. You know what I mean? It's so hard to make it real without making it, physical. It's a very hard thing to teach also. Boker Tov, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. This is the Shabbat of Bahar B'chukotai, the double Torah portion in which we finish out the book of Vayikra, the book of Leviticus. So, we will begin our morning service way back on page 103, and we rise for the morning brachot and shake off the dust of sleep. Shasani ben Chorin. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani Yisrael. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hokeach ivrim. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam mogish arumim. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokef kifufim. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam rokah ha'aretz hamayim. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Amechim Tzadikav. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Ksasa lekotzaki. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Ozer Yisrael b'gevura. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Oter Yisrael b'tifara. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Hanoten la'ev koach. Amen. We remain standing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Utenenu hayom v'chol yom l'chen al chesed v'rachmim b'einecha u'v'enu chol u'enu v'tikim l'chesedim tovim. Baruch atah Adonai gomel chesedim tovim le'amo Yisrael. We can be seated, page 105. Le'elam yedam yedam. Ashreinu ma tov chelkeinu umana im gorlinu ma yafa yerushateinu. Ashreinu shanachnu mashkimim umarivim erev avoker v'omrim pa'amayim b'chol yom Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Kadesh et shimcha makdishei shemecha v'kadesh et shimcha v'lomecha v'shuatcha tarim v'tagbir karnei baruch atah Adonai kadesh et shimcha v'rabim. 107, the blessing over the study of Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kedeshanu v'tzadav v'tivanu v'la'asok b'divrei Torah. Kaddish to Rabbanan is on page 111. Those who are saying the Kaddish today should rise and say the Kaddish to Rabbanan with me. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemer v'yamlich malchutei v'chaye chon u'vyomei chon u'v'chaye dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala u'zman kariv imru amen. Amen. Yehi shmei Rabban v'varach v'olam u'me'amayam. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh Yitadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shemei dekudesha le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiran ba'alma v'imru amen. Amen. Al Yisrael v'al Rabbanan v'al Tamidei Hon v'al kol Tamidei Hon v'al kol ma'an da'askin ba'oraita diva atra hadin v'di b'chol atar v'atar yehei lahon elachon shlama Raba china v'chista v'rachamin v'chayin arechin u'mezanei revichei u'forchana min kadam Avohonu v'shamayim v'imru amen. Amen. Yehi shlama Raba min shamayim v'chayim tovim aleinu ve'al Yisrael v'imru amen. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mrama hu barachamav yoseh shalom aleinu ve'al Yisrael v'imru amen. We are on page, well, I'll tell you what we're on. We're going to Psalm 30. And then after Psalm 30, we'll do another mourner's Kaddish. Page 120 is Psalm 30. Mizmor shir Chanukat habayit David. The Rabbi Charan Gidil Lev Mismach David Adonai El Hashavat El. I always marvel at the placement of that psalm, Psalm 30, which is a psalm that was said at the dedication of the temple. After the temple was prepared and carefully put together and purified and all ready for the life of the prayer of the Jewish people, so too do we dedicate ourselves, metaphorically, making ourselves into Beit HaMikdash, a sanctuary, a holy space that we then have to dedicate ourselves in preparation for the prayer, which now begins. Mourner's Kaddish 121, those saying Kaddish should rise. Yitkadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabba.
Amen.
Ve'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayei echon u'v'yomei echon u'v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael ba'agala u'v'zman kariv imru Amen.
Amen. Yehi Shemei Rabba Mvorach L'olam Amen. Maya.
Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shemei Dikudesha Berechu Le'ela v'kol birchata v'shirata tush b'chata v'nechamata ta'amiran ba'alma v'imru Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba min Shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen.
Amen.
Oseh shalom b'mramav hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru
Amen.
Amen. All of us rise now for the opening blessing here to the Pesachah Zimra. Baruch Shama V'Haya Baruch Hu Baruch Oseh Bereshit Baruch Hu Mevoseh Baruch Oseh Mekayim Baruch Merechem Al Haaret Baruch Merechem Al Haaret Baruch Moshe Baruch Shemo Baruch the singular one who gives life to the world, the sovereign who is praised and glorified forever and ever. This is your great name. Yachid Helmi Melech Meshubach Mubed Shemo Hagadol Baruch Atah Adonai Melech Mehuna Tishbachon. 123. Ki kol Elohim Elelim Adonai Shemayim Asah. What page is it? 128?
Yeah.
Let's go to page 128 for Psalm 34, and the Chazan has a melody that's going to begin right in the middle of the page on the line that begins with the letter Mem, which we'll get to in just a moment. Right now we're at the top of 128. Page 134. 134 is Psalm 92. Moshe. Yom HaShabbat Tov. Middle of the page. Tzadikatama yifrach keres baranon yizgeshetolin bebet Adonai bechatzot Eloheinu yafrichu odenu Page 135. Page 136 is the Ashrei Yoshvei Vitecha on Yahadu Chasar Hashem Shekachalo Ashrei. Page 138. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Page 140. Page 140 is Psalm 149. Lehesomachem ezikki v'nimchem mechaves alasot behem ishpat katuv haraholachol chasida. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah b'kodsho, hallelujah b'kiyuso. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. V'tzitzilei shama, hallelujah, v'tzitzilei trua. Kol haneshama tehallelujah, kol haneshama tehallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Blessed is God's glorious name always. May God's glory encompass the entire world. Amen. Amen. Baruch Shem Kavod Olam Yemen Kavod Kol Haaretz. Amen. Amen. We rise now on page 142. Rise. Vayifarech David et Adonai lenei kol kahav yomer David. טהור הנעלם שבחרת באברהם והוצאתו מאור כסדים שמת שמו אברהם והוצאת את לבוא נאמן לפניך והים בקעת לפניהם ויערו בתוכם יבשה ואת רודפיהם ישלח למסנות כמו אבן במים עזים. Page 143 ויושע אדוני וירא ישראל את היד הגדולה אשר עשה אדם במצרים ירום את אדוני ויראו אדוני ומשה עבדו עוז ישיר משה אדוני מלוכה משה בגויים ולא משה בארצים לשפוט את הריסה ביתה אדוני מלוכה והיה אדוני מלוכה בארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו נשמת כל חי וברך את שמך אדוני אלוהינו ורוח כל בשר אין לנו אלא אתה אין לנו מלך God, let every mouth thank you, every tongue pledge loyalty, every knee bend to you, every body bow before you, every heart be loyal to you, and every fiber of our being chant your name, fulfilling the song of the psalmist. Kol atzmotai. Every bone in my body cries out, Adonai, who is like you? Page 147. הגדול בכבוד שמך וגבור, הנצח והנרבנתך המלך היושב על כיסא רם ונישא.
להלל, לשבח, לפאר, לרומם, להדר, לברך, ללב ולקרס, על כל דברי שירות ותשבחות. דוד בן ישי, עבדך משיחך.
Page 148.
ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו.
We rise. ברכות והודעות מעתה ועד עולם, ברוך אתה אדוני מלך גדול ותהי שבחות, אל ההודעות אדון הנפלאות, הבוחר בשירי זמרה, מלך אל חי העולם. Turn to page 150 for the first blessing before the Shema, the Yotzer.
ברוך אתה אדוננו מלך העולם יוצר אור וחושך, עושה שלום ובורא את הכל. הכל יודוך, הכל ישבחוך, הכל יאמרו אין קדוש כאלוהים. אפס בלתך עלינו לימות המשיח, ואין דומה לך מושיענו לתחיית המתים. אל אדון הכל המעשים ברוך ומבורך בפי כל נשמה, גדולו החיות הקודש ונדר בכבוד על המרכבה, זכות ומישור לפני כיסאו, חסד רחמים לפני כבודו, מאורות שברא אלוהינו יצרם בדעת בבינה ובהשכל, כוח גבורה נתן בהם להיות מושלים בקרב, מרים זיו ומפיקים נוגה, נעל זיווה בכל העולם, שמחים בזיתם וששים בבואם, עושים באימה רצון גונם, ערב וכבוד נותנים לשמו, צלה ורינה לזכר מלכותו, קרן השמש ויזרחו, ראיתי צורת הלבנה, שבח נותנים לו כל צבא מרום, תפארת וגדול לה, שרפים ופנים וחיות הקודש. שאינו שב ומעשה ידיך, ואל מעורר ראש עשית, יברוך הסלע.
153.
תתברך תורנו, מלכנו ובעלינו, בורא קדושים, יתברך שמך.
כולם אומרים גורי.
ובכולם פותחים את פיהם, בקדושה ובטהרה, בשירה ובזמרה, ומברכים ומשבחים, ומפארים ומרעיצים ומודישים וממליכים את שם האל המלך הגדול, הגיבור והנורא,
קדוש הוא.
וכולם מקבלים עליהם עוד מלכות שמיים. להקדיש ליותרם בנחת רוח, בשפה וברורה ובנעימה קדושה, כולם ביחד עונים ואומרים ביראה, קדוש קדוש צבאות ועבודות וחיות, קדוש גדול מתנשאים לעומת שרפים, לעומת גדול מתנשאים לעומת שרפים, לעומת ואומרים ברוך יהי מקומו, לאל ברוך נעימות יתן וקיים. אור חדש על ציון תאיר, ונזכה כולנו מרעיונו, ברוך אתה אדוני יוצר המאורות.
Amen. On page 154 is the Haba Raba, and I want to just offer a little bit of a kavanah, a little bit of an insight for us to appreciate how this fits in to the service. So, as we've talked about before, the Haba Raba is this beautiful prayer that talks about God's expression of love for us, God reaching out to us with Torah and by teaching us Torah, by teaching us how to live a holy and good life that creates harmony and beauty and delight in our lives. And God expresses love to us just by beaming life into every moment to animate the universe. So this prayer focuses on God's love for us. And then we get to the V'ahavta, which is on 155, which talks about that we are to love God. And how do we love God? We love God by through tefillah, and by primarily, as it's described in the V'ahavta, we love God by following the mitzvot, to create the kind of holy society of unity that God has taught us to create. And so on the one side is God's love for us, and then on the other side, the paragraph that follows, is our love for God, and what stands between them is the Shema, which talks about unity, that God's unity. And so we have love on this side and love on this side, and what binds them together is unity. It's almost like through these paragraphs is a description of what it is that we're aiming for, which is to bring unity and harmony. And just like in a human relationship, you have the lover on one side and the beloved on the other side, and through that they create unity. So too is the Siddur really describing this modeling of our lives and trying to reach out from our side to create unity with God, and God reaching out from God's side, so to speak, to create unity with us. So that's between the lines of the Siddur, so to speak. We're on 154.
Haba Raba, בדרך עמלת עלינו, ומכן עבור ובתינו. חלבים נשכיל לשמוע אמן, לשמוע לזכם, קודם את אמרה באהבה. וערנו בתורתך, ודבק לבנו במצוותיך, ויחל לבבינו, לאהבה וליראה את שמך, ולא נבושי, ולא נקלם, ולא נקשר, לעולם ועד, כי בשם קודשך הגדול והנורא בהתאכלו, נגילה וניסך לפניך, נגילה ונשמחה בשובתך.
אהבינו
שלום על הארץ.
ושלום
וקרבתנו לשמך גדול סר באמת, להודות לך וליחדך באהבה. ברוך אתה אדוני,
שמו
הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד.
Page 155. Seat. Very, very bottom of 156.
דור ודור הוא קיים ושמו קיים וחסון נכון ומלכותו ואמונתו לעד קיימת ודבריו חיים וקיימים נאמנים ונחמדים לעד עולם העולמים ולבתינו ועלינו על בלעדינו כל ארץ ישראל עבדיך ראשונים ולאחרונים אבל טוב וקיים לעולם ועד המדומן החוק ולא יעבור אמת שתבוא אדוני אלוהינו ולאבותינו מלכנו ולאבותינו גואלנו ולאבותינו יוצרנו צור שובתנו פדינו מצילנו מעולם שמך אלוהים זולתך עזרת עבדינו אתם בעולם מגן ומשיח לבני אחריהם בכל דור ודור. תהילות ליל עליון, ברוך ומבורך, משה ומרים ובני ישראל, בשמחה רבה ואמרו כולם, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר ובקודש, נורת תהילות או ספר. שיר חדשה שילחו גאולים לשמך על שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו המליכו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד.
We are at the very bottom of 158 and we rise now, and I'm going to give us after the Amidah, I'll add a minute or two of just quiet. So after you get through the words of the tefillah, that you just take a moment just to remain and to breathe and try to let go of all extraneous thoughts, whatever things you're thinking about on your to-do list, or the weather that it's outside, or what you're going to do later this morning, or by what time are you going to have your 7th cup of coffee this morning. Just let it all go and just try to stand there in connection with your tefillah and let your prayer become you. So we'll take a couple of extra minutes for the Amidah. So when you get through the Siddur, just remain standing there and close your eyes and let the words that are on your heart be the expression of your prayer. We're at the bottom of 158.
Torah Yisrael, Kuma Bezrat Yisrael, Uferdechinu Mecha, Yehuda Yisrael, Go'aleinu, Adonai Tzevaot Shemo, Kedosh Yisrael, Baruch Atah Adonai.
One of the things this difficult time of COVID and quarantine is the ways in which I've been surprised by how deeply connected I feel to people. I think when this all started, I think many of us had anxiety that we were going to be so disconnected that Jewish community was going to be difficult, very challenging to uphold, and certainly we'd rather be in the same space with one another, embracing one another, saying hello, looking in one another's eyes. But I'm struck, for just a moment there, we're all standing in different rooms across the city. We can't see each other. We don't even know everybody who's here. We're not even saying any words. We're not, at some point, when I ask you to meditate or just breathe and just put down, close your siddur, you're thinking your own thoughts, I'm thinking my own thoughts. There's almost really no real connection between us, and yet we're all very deeply connected, aware that we are engaged in this prayer together. There's something almost miraculous about that moment of connection and unity without anything that we can point to that's really connecting us. It was really kind of a supernal moment for me. Okay, let's get to the Torah portion. So it's a double Torah portion. Some years we read Bahar alone, and then the next week we read Bechukotai, and finish the book of Leviticus with Bechukotai. And some years we read it together, and it's a double Torah portion. But because we are reading during this this period of streaming services, we're doing the triennial cycle. We're just going to read the first part of Bahar, Parshat Bahar, which is in the Eitz Chaim Chumash on page 738, and I'll get you a page number in the stone. But in any event, we're going to read these verses, and we'll reflect on them a little bit later. In the stone, it's on 696. So if you have one of those two Chumashim, then good on you. So 696 on the stone is Parshat Bahar, and in the Eitz Chaim, it's 738, and the Chazan is going to begin us with the first Aliyah. So, in all of these, it's chapter 25 of the book of Leviticus. Chapter 25 of the book of Leviticus, verse 1. כן, יש, מה?
ללוח.
עוד לוח, כן.
So now the
כן.
distinguishing.
הראשון,
1 through 3, I think.
1 through 3, yeah.
וידבר אדוני אל משה בהר סיני לאמור דבר אל בני ישראל ואמרת עליהם כי תבואו אל הארץ אשר אני נותן לכם ושבת הארץ שבת לאדוני 6 שנים תזרע שדך ו6 שנים תזמור כרמך ואספת את תבואתה.
So we see the extension of the number 7 throughout the universe. Of course, the universe is created through the number 7 on... and now we see that number 7, these 7 cycles in which the Shabbat of the land plays out. So the second Aliyah is at verses 4 through 7, chapter 25. ובשנה השביעית שבת שבתון יהיה לארץ שבת לאדוני שדך לא תזרע וחמך לא תזמור את צפיח קצירך לא תקצור ואת ענבי נזירך לא תקצור שנת שבתון יהיה לארץ והייתה שבת הארץ לכם לאכלה לך ולעבדך ולאמתך ולשכיך ולתושבך הגרים עמך ולבהמתך ולחיה אשר בארצך תהיה כל תבואתה לאכול. Third Aliyah is verses 8 through 13.
ושפרת לך 7 שבתות שנים, 7 שנים, 7 פעמים, והיו לך ימי 7 שבתות השנים 49 שנה, ועברת שופר תרועה בחודש השביעי בעשור לחודש, ביום הכיפורים תעבירו שופר בכל ארצכם וקידשתם את שנת 50 שנה וקראתם דרור בארץ לכל יושביה, יובל היא תהיה לכם ושבתם איש אל אחוזתו ואיש אל משפחתו תשובו, יובל היא שנת 50 שנה תהיה לכם, לא תזרעו ולא תקצרו את צפיחיה ולא תבצרו את נזיריה, כי היא יובל היא קודש תהיה לכם, מן השדה תאכלו את תבואתה, בשנת היובל הזאת תשובו איש אל אחוזתו.
The next Aliyah, fourth Aliyah, is verses 4 through 18. וכי תמכרו ממכר לעמיתך או קנו מיד עמיתך, אל תונו איש את אחיו מספר שנים אחר יובל, תקנה מאת עמיתך במספר 2 תבואות ימכור לך לפי רוב השנים, תרבה מקנתו ולפי מאות השנים תמעיט מקנתו, כי מספר תבואות הוא מוכר לך, ולא תבוא איש את עמיתו ויראתה מאלוהיך, כי אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ועשיתם את חוקותיי ואת משפטיי תשמרו, ועשיתם אותם וישבתם על הארץ לבטח. The fifth Aliyah is verses 19 through 24.
ונתנה הארץ פריה ואכלתם לשובע וישבתם לבטח עליה, וכי תאמרו מה נאכל בשנה השביעית, אין לא נזרע ולא נאסוף את תבואתנו, וציוויתי את ברכתי לכם בשנה השישית, ועשת את התבואה לשלוש השנים, וזרעתם את השנה השמינית, ואכלתם מן התבואה הישן עד השנה התשיעית, עד בוא תבואתה תאכלו ישן, והארץ לא תימכר לצמיתות, כי לי הארץ כי גרים ותושבים אתם עמדי, ובכל ארץ אחוזתכם גאולה תיתנו לארץ.
I want to pause here for just a minute because we're going to make a mishaberach for the cholim, but I just want to pause and look at that unbelievably powerful, gorgeous, magnificent teaching from the Torah. Hashem says, Ki li haaretz, ki gerim v'toshav, imatem imadi. The land is mine, says God, and you are like resident visitors. You're temporary visitors with me, says God. Imagine if we just took that one idea and we applied it to everything in our life, in our society, in our personal lives, how it would transform our relationship to what we have, to one of gratitude, rather than thinking I, me, mine all the time. We'll realize that all of this, everything that you can touch, see, feel, and sense is on loan to us, so to speak, from the creator and owner of all things. And also how we would think about people who don't have what they need. There are people around us living on the streets, or people who are living in poverty, and sometimes we say, and our policymakers say, well, they haven't done what they need to do to get what they want, and if they change their lives and they kind of step up, then they can get what they want. Hashem says, it's not yours to give or to take. All of it belongs to me, and you have to create a just society and kindness and compassion within that context. It's a magnificent teaching. Good stuff. Okay, shkoyach. Thank you. So what I want to say now is that we're going to read a Mishnah for the Cholim. So if you, the Chazan is going to begin the blessing in just a minute, then he'll pause, and then you can say the name of somebody you are thinking of who's in need of healing, and we'll go from there.
יברך אבותינו אברהם יצחק ויעקב, ואמותינו שרה רבקה רחל ולאה, הוא יברך וירפא את החולים.
I'm thinking of Leah Bat Esther, William King, and Barbara Gould, and אין לי עוד שמות. אוקיי.
ואת כל שאר החולים בקהילה הקדושה זו, הקדוש ברוך הוא ימלא רחמים עליהם, להחזיקם רבדם וישלח להם רפואה שלמה מן השמיים, רפואת הנפש ורפואת הגוף, בתוך שאר חולי ישראל, שבתים לזעוק ורפואת קרוב ורבו, השתה בגלל הזמן קריב, ונאמר אמן.
Okay, the sixth Aliyah, verses 25 through 28. כי ימוך אחיך ומכר מאחוזתו ובגואלו קרוב אליו וגאל את ממכר אחיו ואיש כי לא יהיה לו גואל והשיגה ידו ומצא כדי חישב את שני ממכרו והשיב את העודף לאיש אשר מכר לו ושב לאחוזתו, ואם לא מצא ידו, דהשיב לו, והיה ממכרו, ויד הקונה אותו עד שנת היובל, ויצא ביובל, ושוב לאחוזתו. The seventh Aliyah is at chapter 25, verses 29.
29.
Yeah, 29 through 38.
And shall we think about the Chazal?
Yeah, that's right. So when we thank you for reminding me. So we have the great merit today and the privilege of closing out the book of Vayikra, closing out the book of Leviticus. Now this is kind of a strange moment because normally when we would read this together, if we were all together and doing the full Torah service, we would be reading through the very, very last verse of the book of Leviticus, and then we would see that indeed we've completed the book of Leviticus, but this time we're only doing the triennial reading. But even in congregations that do the triennial reading, when they get to the end of the triennial reading, no matter where they are in the cycle, that is, even if they don't actually read the very last word of the parashah, still they say the traditional formula that we say in celebration and recognition of the passage of another book of Torah when we complete the Torah, which is at the end of it, we say chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek, which is like a, strength, and be strong, and we will be strengthened. It's like this affirmation. And I just want to point out that this is an interesting, important, profound milestone for us, because when we began all of this separation, we were in the book of Vayikra, and now we're finishing the book of Vayikra. And if it were up to us, we'd also be finishing our separation. But nonetheless, a milestone that we've been together reading faithfully the Torah and praying together. So when we get to the end of this Aliyah and finish out the reading, all the readings that we'll do in Vayikra, we'll say that formulation together.
ואיש תמכור בית מושב העיר חומה, והייתה גאולתו עד תום שנת ממכרו, ימים תהיה גאולתו, ואם לא יגאל עד מלאת לו שנה תמימה, וגם הבית אשר בעיר, אשר לא חומה לצמיתות, לקונה אותו לדורותיו, לא יצא ביובל ובתי החצרים, אשר אין להם חומה סביב, על שדה הארץ יחשב, גאולה תהיה לו וביובל יצא, וערי הלווים בתי ערי אחוזתם, גאולת עולם תהיה ללווים. ואשר יגאל מן הלווים ויצא מן כרבית, ועיר אחוזתו ביובל, כי בתי הרי הלווים. היא אחוזתם בתור בני ישראל, ושדה מגרש עריהם לא ימכר, כי אחוזת עולם הוא להם. וכי ימוך אחיך ומטה ידו עמך, וחזקת בו גר ותושב וחי עמך. אל תיקח מאיתו נשך ותרבית, ויראת מאלוהיך, וכי אחיך עמך. את כספך לא תיתן לו בנשך, ובמרבית לא תיתן אוכלך. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, לתת לכם את ארץ כנען, להיות לכם לאלוהים. חזק חזק ונתחזק.
Sorry about that. I didn't cause you confusion. I thought you were finishing early. Okay, so I want to talk about, and we'll give the Chazan just a moment to rest, because I'm going to share some words, and then he will chant the magnificent, gorgeous Haftarah for today, which is from Yirmiyahu. And but what I want to talk about is this heavy-duty teaching, super heavy, verse 35. Let me read from the translation that's here, verse 35 of chapter 25, which is quite relevant to us at this moment of our collective lives. It may not seem so at first, but it says, Ki yamuch achicha u'matat yado imach vehezechta bo ger v'toshav v'chai imach. If your kinsman, being in straits, like he says, kind of financial trouble, comes under your authority, okay, so he comes maybe to live on your land, or he comes to work for you, and you hold him as though a resident alien, let him live by your side. Let him live by your side. Chai imach. So on the Peshat level, on the simple level, what this teaching is telling us that, this person comes and maybe indentures himself to you. He's going to live with you. All right, and then the Torah is going to spell out what are the extent of your obligations and how are you going to work out this financial relationship. But in the Gemara, in the Talmud, this verse actually becomes a very profound meditation on something that is an essential part of our social, of our lives together. Because Chai Imach, when it says let him live with you, like again on the Peshat, it seems like we're just saying the person is going to reside near you and be part of your life, maybe as a family. But in the Gemara, this becomes a meditation on this very deep philosophical question of how do we navigate, so to speak, the space between us? What are my obligations to you? What are the extent of my obligations to another person? How do I think about my own self-interest in relationship to your interest? And what is the extent of that obligation? So at a moment in which our country is wrestling with when can we leave our kind of lockdown situation, and how much can we put health at risk versus the economy at risk? And somebody who lives in an area where there's not a lot of COVID, can that person go back to work, or are we going to kind of keep everybody at the same level of lockdown in order to preserve the health of everybody? Really at the core of those debates, of those discussions, when they're at their most refined and not when we're talking about mobs screaming at each other, really it is, how do we balance in our it's really it's a story that's really a thought experiment, and it imagines two people who are walking through the wilderness, through the desert together, and they're very, very far from any place of residence, and very far from water or food, and they have just enough water for one of them. You may have heard this story before. They have just enough water for one of them. How should they think about splitting the water? If they both drink the water, they'll both die because there's not enough. And then they're left with the question, okay, so does one of us take it and then watch the other die, and then that person will, the one who lives will be able to make it to safety and live. And so the rabbis, not surprisingly, have multiple opinions about this. And Ben Petura says they should both drink. They should both drink rather than one person have the knowledge that he has allowed his companion to die. One should never get to the point where you're looking upon the death of another because you've chosen your own life over them. And Rabbi Akiva says, no. It says chai imach, live with your brother. So in a relationship in which you're talking about your relationship to your brother, you have to live. And even if it comes to the point, I should say, in which you have to make a choice, Rabbi Akiva says you have to prioritize your own life, which may seem coarse and may seem cold, but in fact, Akiva is saying your life is a gift from God, and we're obligated to preserve it. And if such a situation would come up, God forbid, then you prioritize your life based on this verse from the Torah, verse 35, where it says, you live with your brother. His life is with you. But what's interesting is that elsewhere in the Torah, from a couple of parshiot ago, Rabbi Akiva said something very, very different, or seemed to say something very, very different, because the Torah teaches ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your neighbor as yourself. The Torah says, I think in Parshat Kedoshim, ahavta l'reacha kamocha. And there Rabbi Akiva said, this is a great principle of the Torah. Love your neighbor as yourself, which seems to say love him equally. You could never make a choice between yourself and him, your companion, your kinsman. Let your love be so expansive, maybe, that there's no distinction between your love of yourself and your love for him. So how does that teaching of Rabbi Akiva there mix with this one, where Rabbi Akiva says in this thought experiment that if it comes down to it, you have to choose your life before him? To me, the answer to the question is less important than the question itself. One of the answers to the question is that in one case, Rabbi Akiva is talking about your spiritual well-being versus your spiritual well-being. We should be equally concerned. There should be no distinction between my concern for elevating myself as a human being and turning myself into a mensch as there is for you. I need to be equally concerned with the spiritual path you're on, making sure you don't take the wrong choices in your life and that you make the most out of your life that you can, and so should your concern extend equally to me. But when it comes to material well-being, perhaps Rabbi Akiva means if I must, then I'll have to choose my own well-being over yours. But as I said, less important is the answer to me than is the question. Because I think that one of the ills of our society is that we simply don't take these kinds of questions seriously enough. And we resort too quickly in our society to the idea that my life has priority over yours. And if you're making the wrong choices in your life, or you don't have what you need, then that's your problem. And I can take care of myself, and I can take care of my family, and that's my primary concern. Nothing could be further from the truth. Nothing could be further from the Torah truth, I should say. That's not how we think as Yidden. We never discount the life of another. Sure, if it comes to the point of the extremities of that thought experiment, God forbid it comes to that point, then we can wrestle with that. But what is assumed by all of the teachers here is that our lives are so interwoven that I'm obligated to constantly be thinking about the well-being, so chai imach, so your life can be with my life. So this is neither here nor there with regard to the COVID problem and whether we have to restart the economy or not restart the economy. The Torah does not give a prescription for how that should work. But what it does tell us is, as we think through these problems and as we confront the needs and the opinions of other people, that they have to be taken seriously, and we have to treat each other with dignity and the seriousness that we're all responsible for one another. And we have to be deeply, deeply concerned with the transformations that are happening in our society, and I'll close on this line, and the long-term economic trauma that this COVID issue is causing us, whether we reopen the economy tomorrow or months from now, that it's our obligation as Jews to remember that this is not a time for fend for yourself thinking, that this is a time where we have to really advocate for the well-being of all of us, and which those who are able to will have to really reach deeply into their pockets to support one another, because the well-being of each of us is the well-being of all of us, and that we're not allowed to cavalierly say that our lives take precedence and other people can take care of themselves. And I will close on emphasizing the idea that in these passages of the Torah, where it talks about that your fellow person, chai imach, this person has to live with you, it's quite clear from the text that it's not just talking even about the Jewish community. It's not just talking about Israelites. Yes, we have to have that relationship to fellow Jews, but the Torah verse itself says, ger v'toshav also. The ger, the stranger, which some people interpret as being the person who is converted to Judaism. But then it also says v'toshavbo, which Rashi understands to mean someone who's just come to live with you, who's not an Israelite. So this obligation does not end at the boundaries of our homes or even of the Jewish community. It extends well beyond. We are to take care of and to see the souls of other people as being wrapped up with our own. So I wanted to share that teaching from this last parasha of Vayikra. And now I want to actually, before we continue, I just want to say happy birthday to the following people because we forgot to do this. So, happy birthday, before we continue with the Haftarah, sorry. I want to say happy birthday to Ronald Sabatnik. Happy birthday, Ron. Jose Siegel Socaras, and Jan Byrne, Sophie Enlow, and Ian Freeman. I hope that all of you have a beautiful, healthy year, and many more in the years to come. Okay, the Haftarah is magnificent, and it is from Yirmiyahu, from Jeremiah. And the Chazan's going to chant it now. You can find it in your Chumash.
And in case you didn't know, Sophie Enlow.
Oh, did I say Sophie Enlow? I wasn't even listening to what I was reading.
Yes, Sophie Enlow, which is of course my younger sweet daughter.
The Chazan's daughter, with whom he's teaching Nigunim to people.
Indeed.
Happy birthday, Sophie. We love you.
Me too.
Of course.
Adonai Ozi Mozi Umenosi Beyom Tzara Elecha Goyim Yavo Me'afsei Aretz Veyomru Ach Sheker Nachalu Avoteinu Hevel Vein Bam Mo'ir Ayasilo Adam Elohim Vehema Lo Elohim לכן הנני מודיעם בפעם הזאת, אודיעם את ידי ואת גבורתי, וידעו כשמי אדוני. חטאת יהודה כתובה, בעד ברזל וציפורן שמיר, חרושה לוח ליבם, ולקרנות מזבחותיכם, כי זכור בניהם מזבחותם, ואשריהם על עץ רענן, על גבעות הגבעות. הררי בשדה, חילך, כל אוצרותיך לבזעתם, במותיך, בחטאת בכל גבולך. ושמטת ובך מנחלתך אשר נתתי לך ועבדתיך את אויבך בארץ אשר לא ידעת כי אש תהילתי עד עולם תוקל. כה אמר אדוני, ארור הגבר אשר יבטח באדם ושם בשר זרעו, ומן אדוני יסור ליבו. והיה כערער בערבה, ולא יראה כי יבוא טוב. ושכן חררים במדבר, ארץ מלאכה ולא תשב. ברוך הגבר אשר יבטח באדוני, והיה אדוני מבטחו. והיה שורשיו, ולא יראה כי יבוא חום. והיה עליהו רענן, ובשנת בצורת לא ידאג, ולא ימיש מעשות פרי. עקוב הלב מכל ואנושו מידענו. אני אדוני חוקר לב בוחן כליות, ולדת לאיש כדרכיו כפרי מעלליו. כורת דגר ולא ילד, עושה עושר ולא משפט. בחצי ימיו יעזבנו, ובאחריתו יהיה נבל. כיסא כבוד מרום מראשון, מקום מקדשנו. מקווה ישראל אדוני, כל עוזבך יבושו, וסורי בארץ יכתבו, כי ישבו מקור מים חיים את אדוני. רפאני אדוני וארפה, הושעני ואיוושע, כי תהילתי אתה.
That's just let me highlight just a couple of things, because you know different aspects of this Haftarah, different parts of it. So the line in verse 7 it says, Baruch HaGever Asher Yiftach Ba'Adonai. Blessed is the person who trusts in God, V'hayara Miftacho, and for whom God is his trust. That is a line that we say, of course, in the Birkat HaMazon. We sing, usually in the Birkat HaMazon. And then the last line of the Haftarah, Refa'eni Adonai Ve'erapeh, the rabbis took that, that means heal me God and let me be healed. The rabbis took that and they placed it into the Amidah, where we say it in the plural. Refa'enu Adonai, heal us and we will be healed. So those are two lines that connect into different parts of the liturgy, but this Haftarah is just so gorgeous. But enough of that. We're going to continue with Yekum Porkan on page 176.
Yekum Porkan Shema Yachil Nevechizram Acharechizm Revi Chaytar Vishma Yevir Gufa Onhulam Aliyah.
Let's rise. We're going to read the blessing for Israel, which is on page 178, the blessing for Medinat Yisrael. Avinu Shabbat Shemayim Tzur Yisrael V'go Alo Berech et Medinat Yisrael Shetieh Reshit Tzmichat Ge'ulatenu. God in the heavens, stronghold and redeemer of the people of Israel, bless the state of Israel, that it may be the beginning of our redemption. Shield it with your love, spread over it the shelter of your peace, guide its leaders and advisors with your light and your truth. Help them with your good counsel, strengthen the hands of those who defend our holy land. Deliver them, crown their efforts with triumph, bless the land with peace and its inhabitants with lasting joy. And let us say Amen.
Amen.
The blessing for Artzot Habrit, the United States, is on 177. God of our God and God of our ancestors, with mercy accept our prayer on behalf of our country and its government. Pour out your blessing upon this land and upon its inhabitants. upon its leaders and its judges and officers and officials who faithfully devote themselves to the needs of the public. Help them understand the rules of justice that you have decreed, so that peace and security, happiness and freedom will never depart from our land. Adonai, God whose spirit is in all creatures, we pray that this spirit be awakened within all the inhabitants of our land. Uproot from our hearts hatred and malice, jealousy and strife. Plant love and companionship, peace and friendship among the many peoples and faiths who dwell in our nation. Help us to act wisely and to root out poverty. May it be your will that our land be a blessing to all who dwell on earth. And may you cause all peoples to dwell in friendship and freedom, and speedily fulfill the vision of your prophets. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. And we say,
Amen.
Amen. Okay. We will now go to the Ashrei, which we can be seated. Page 181 is the Ashrei.
אשרי יושבי ביתך, יאור יהלל חסר.
אשרי העם שככה לו, אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו.
תהילה לדוד ארון ממך, אלוהי המלך, בעברך שמך לעולם ועד.
בכל יום אברכך, והללה שמך לעולם ועד.
גדול אדוני ומהולל מאוד, ולגדולתו אין חקר.
לדור לדור ישבח מעשיך, ובגבורתך יגידו.
הדר כבוד הודך, ודברי נפלותיך אשיך.
עזוז נורתך יאמרו, וגדולתך אספרנה.
זכר רב טובך יביאו, וצדקתך ירננו.
חנון ורחום אדוני, ערך אפיים הגדול חסד.
טוב אדוני לכל, ורחמיו על כל מעשיו.
יודוך אדוני כל מעשיך, וחסידיך יברכוך.
כבוד מלכותך יאמרו, גבורתך ידברו.
להודיע לבני אדם גבורותיו, וכבוד אדם מלכותו.
מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור.
סומך אדוני לכל הנופלים, וזוקף לכל הכפופים.
מכל לך יסדרו, ואתה נותן להם את אוכלם ביתו.
פותח את ידיך, ומסביר לכל חרצו.
צדיק אדוני בכל דרכיו, וחסיד בכל מעשיו.
קרוב אדוני לכל קורב, לכל אשר יקראו באמת.
רצון יראה ויעשה, ואת שבתה משמע ויושיעם.
שומר אדוני את כל אוהביו, ואת כל הרשעים ישבית.
דבר בי, ויברך כל בשר שם קודשו לעולם ועד. ואנחנו נברך יה, מעתה ועד עולם. הללויה.
That was nice. Page 185 is the Musaf for Shabbat, and we rise. We rise for the Musaf for Shabbat 185. Oseh Shalom Bimrama. Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'imru Amen. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael. On page 200, we can be seated. On page 204 is Ain.
Eloheinu ein, Adoneinu ein, Kel Malkeinu ein Moshiach. Baruch Eloheinu Baruch Adonenu Baruch Malkeinu Baruch Moshiachenu Atahu Eloheinu Atahu Adonenu Atahu Malkeinu Moshiachenu Atahu שהקטירו אבותינו לפניך כתורת אמן.
Page 205, we rise for the Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח אדון הכל, לתת גדולה ויותר בראשית, שלא עשנו כביערצות, ולא שם לנו כמשפחות באדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, ולא עלינו ככל העולם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומשה יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובהי מרומים. ואלוהינו אין עוד, ואת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו. וידעת היום והשאותה אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא אלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת. אין עוד על כן דקרא. ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ.
mourner's Kaddish is on page 207. If you're seeing Kaddish today, you should remain standing, and I'll give you just a moment to say the name or the names of the person or people you're remembering out loud. I am remembering my father, Rabbi Emmanuel Rose, Harav Emmanuel ben Harav Abraham Yosef ben Malka. Zichronam Levracha, may their memories be a blessing, and may the memories of these people whose yardsticks occur this week be a blessing as well. Lori Alberton, Ann Beckerman, Simeon Selnick, Rose Cohen, Seymour Danish, Phil Fiddler, Aaron Frankel, Pearl Freeman, Barbara Gerson, Moishe Glickman, Betty Goldenberg, Herman Gottesman, Ben Jacobson, Gertrude Jaffe, Bessie Lazowski, Ruth Levin, Sam Mesher, Fanny Mozarowski, Paul Noodleman, Henry Olshan, Joe Parnas, Harry Potter, Morris Rosenfeld, Edward Rosenfield, Lillian Scheib, Goldie Sliffman, Nathan Steinbach, Frank Swerdlick, and Morris Weiser. Zichronam Levracha, may their memories be a blessing. Page 207 is the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shemei Rabba.
Amen.
Ve'alma divrach gerutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayei chon u'v'yomei chon v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael ba'agalah u'bizman kariv v'imru amen.
Amen.
Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadach v'yirechu. Tush b'chad imru amen.
Amen. Amen.
Roma hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol. Announcement is coming up, and just want to make sure that you know what's going on. You check your email from the congregation, or if you're not on the email list, get on the email list from the congregation, because there's so many great offerings coming up. The Chazan is teaching another Nigun class. We've got a couple of great offerings coming up on Shavuot, including a yoga teaching with Rachel Stern, and I'm doing a teaching, a series of theology discussions with other rabbis in the community. So on June 7th, Rabbi Fisher and I are going to have a dialogue by Zoom that you're invited to be part of, and then Rabbi Deborah Kolodny and I are going to be doing the same thing. There's just so many great things going on. I want to make sure you don't miss out on them. And then also, I know what you're thinking. Right now, you're thinking, I don't have a Siddur. How am I supposed to pray with this community without a Siddur? If that's your situation, you don't have one of these in your hot little hands, then please reach out to the office or reach out to me. I'm Rabbi Rose at ShariTorah.org, Rabbi Rose at ShariTorah.org, and we'll figure out a way to get a Siddur into your hands to make the davening more powerful and more meaningful. And that's it. I want to wish all of you health and blessing. Do what you have to do to take care of yourself. It's mentally and physically, it's hard in these times. Try to get outside if you're able to. Walk around a little bit. Open the windows. Move your body if you can. And remember that we're all deeply connected, just as we were in that moment of the Amidah, when we were all really directing our hearts to prayer. So too, in some way, are we all still connected. You're not alone, and I care about you, and I hope that you'll reach out if you're in need or if you just want to talk. And I hope to see you in some of our classes and lessons soon. I want to thank the Chazan for his beautiful davening, and we're going to conclude on with Adon Olam on page 211.
Adon Olam asher malach b'terem kol yetzer nivra leitin nasa v'chefetz kol azay melech shelo nikra leitin nasa v'chefetz kol azay melech shelo nikra ve'acharei kithot hakol לבדו ימלוך נורא, והוא היה, והוא הווה, והוא יהיה בתפארה, והוא היה, והוא הווה, והוא יהיה בתפארה, והוא אחד ואין שני, ועם שלו להכבירה, בלי ראשית, בלי תכלית, ולא העוז והמשרה, בלי ראשית, בלי תכלית, ולא העוז והמשרה. והוא אלי וחי גואלי, וצור חבלי בצרה, והוא ניסי ומנוס לי, מנת כוסי ביום מקרא, והוא ניסי ומנוס לי, מנת כוסי ביום מקרא. בידו אפקיד רוחי, בעת אישן והעירה, ועם רוחי גבייתי, אדוני לי ולא יירא, ועם רוחי גבייתי, אדוני לי ולא יירא. Good Shabbat.
Shabbat Shalom. Have a beautiful Shabbos.
שכוח.